Hare Krishna. Rest, ice, compression, and elevation. That's the formula. Okay, 1 minute, I'll tell you what happened. Otherwise you're going to know what happened. Saturday night I usually do my laundry over at the laundromat at Hornblend and Ingram down there. I used to do it out here, but it's not anymore. And I take a walk, evening walk. So I walk up Ingram and I walk back. It's about a mile and with a little grading, hill, so it's good exercise. So I'm walking on the west side of Ingram. It's dark. It's like 7:30. And I decide to cross the street. But being foolish, although I've done this before, I didn't wait till I got to the corner. Even though it's a big thoroughfare, there was no traffic, and I wanted to just go in the middle. So I stepped off the sidewalk, and there was a ditch. And I just felt, I knew it was sprained as soon as it happened. There's also a little injury on this side, and I have a little cut here. But the sprain is, messing me up. So I made sure it was a sprain, not a break, and now we're continuing with life. Hopefully I get back to normal. And that's why you didn't see me Sunday, Monday. Hopefully I'll be able to come tomorrow morning. Okay, we're going to start a new chapter today. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Mistapad Paramahansa Paradikacharya Astotar to the Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Paradikacharya Astotar to the Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. I would just request, before the class starts, you need another book. You need one more book. Hopefully I think we maybe need to get some more books. Not only because we sometimes don't have enough, but because these are old books and there have been quite a few revisions since then. And can someone please be aware that sometimes there are new people in the class and they need the sheets for the song, such as Jesse Prabhu or Michael Prabhu. You came late anyway, but do you know the song yet? It's extra. Okay, so then you need a sheet too. So it slipped my mind today, but there's so many people here, so just be aware of that. Okay, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Page 639. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this first day of November 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we're beginning a new chapter today entitled The Divisions of Faith. This is chapter 17, and we are on text 1. Arjuna Uvacha Ye Shastravidhim Uttrijya Yajante Shraddhayanvitaha Tesham Nishta Tukha Krishna Sattvam Aho Rajastamaha. Arjuna Vacha Ye Shastravidam Uttrijya Yajante Shraddhayanvitaha Tesham Nishta Tukha Krishna Sattvamaho Rajastamaha. Arjuna Vacha Ye Shastravidam Uttrijya Yajante Shraddhayanvitaha Tesham Nishta Tukha Krishna Sattvamaho Rajastamaha. Arjuna Uvacha Ye Shastravidam Uttrijya Yajante Shraddhayanvitaha Tesham Nishta Tukha Krishna Sattvamaho Rajastamaha. Arjuna Uvacha Ye Shastravidam Uttrijya Yajante Shraddhayanvitaha Tesham Nishta Tukha Krishna Sattvamaho Rajastamaha. Arjuna Uvacha Ye Shastravidam Uttrijya Yajante Shraddhayanvitaha Tesham Nishta Tukha Krishna Sattvamaho Rajastamaha. Govardhan Prabhu. Arjuna Vacha Ye Shastravidam Uttrijya Yajante Shraddhayanvitaha Tesham Nishta Tukha Krishna Sattvamaho Rajastamaha. Dimitri. Arjuna Vacha Ye Shastravidam Uttrijya Shraddhayanvitaha Tesham Nishta Tukha Krishna Sattvamaho Rajastamaha. Dhanavari. Arjuna Vacha Ye Shastravidam Uttrijya Yajante Shraddhayanvitaha Tesham Nishta Tukha Krishna Sattvamaho Rajastamaha. Zoomland.
Arjuna Vacha
Arjuna Vacha
Ye Shastravidim Utsrijya
Ye Shastravidam Uttrijya
Yajante Shraddhayanvitaha
Yajante Shraddhayanvitaha
Tesham Nishta Tukha Krishna
Nishta Tukha Krishna
Sattvam Aho Rajastamaha.
Sattvamaho Rajastamaha. Go ahead, one more.
Arjuna Vacha
Arjuna Vacha
Ye Shastravidam Uttrijya
Ye Shastravidam Uttrijya
Yajante Shraddhayanvitaha
Yajante Shraddhayanvitaha
Tesham Nishta Tukha Krishna
Tesham Nishta Tukha Krishna
Satvamaho Rajastamaha.
Sattvamaho Rajastamaha. Before I read the synonyms, Amoga, it's way too quiet in here. Now make sure you turn it on because we don't have much distancing here. Our only saving grace is these big fans up in the ceiling. Otherwise, we're all going to get COVID. Much better. And open the door a little bit. Okay. Arjuna Huvacha, Arjun said, yea, those who, Shastra Vidam, the regulations of scripture, Utsrija, giving up, Yajante, worship, Shraddhaya, full faith, Anvitaha, possessed of, Tesham, of them, Nishta, the faith, to, but, Ka, what, Krishna, O Krishna, Sattvam, in goodness, Aho, or else, Rajaha, in passion, Tamaha, in ignorance. Translation. Arjuna inquired, O Krishna, what is the situation of those who do not follow the principles of Scripture, but worship according to their own imagination? Are they in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance? Purport. In the 4th chapter, 39th verse, it is said that a person faithful to a particular type of worship gradually becomes elevated to the stage of knowledge and attains the highest perfectional stage of peace and prosperity. In the 16th chapter, it is concluded that one who does not follow the principles laid down in the scriptures is called an asura, or demon, and one who follows the scriptural injunctions faithfully is called a deva, or demigod. Now, if one, with faith, follows some rules which are not mentioned in the scriptural injunctions, what is his position? This doubt of Arjun's is to be cleared by Krishna. Are those who create some sort of god, by selecting a human being and placing their faith in him, worshipping in goodness, passion, or ignorance? Do such persons attain the perfectional stage of life? Is it possible for them to be situated in real knowledge and elevate themselves to the highest perfectional stage? Do those who do not follow the rules and regulations of the scriptures, but who have faith in something and worship gods and demigods and men, attain success in their effort? Arjuna is putting these questions to Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshunmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, some of you may have noticed that Arjuna is using the exact words that Krishna used in text 23 of the previous chapter, which begins, Yak Shastra Vinamutsrija, Vartate Kamakarataha, Nasasiddham Avapnoti, Nasukam Naparam Gatim. There he's saying that one who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection, nor happiness, nor the supreme destination. And therefore, one should understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that one may gradually be elevated. Otherwise, one stands every chance of falling into the control of the modes of nature, being degraded, and we just heard a description in the previous chapter, taking on these demonic qualities and making a very dark future for oneself. So Arjuna begins his question here, that, well, what's the position of one who gives up the Shastra? Because that last verse of the previous chapter said one should accept the Shastra, the scripture, as given by Krishna and his representatives, as one's pramana. Pramana is a very important word. It means evidence. The evidence, trusted evidence about what one should do and what one should not do, how one should understand one's position in the universe. What am I? What is God? Is there a God? What is this world? Most people believe there is a world. I'm not going to say is there a world, but there's some people who don't even believe that's real. You can go completely off the reservation and go into crazy land unless you have some trustworthy form of evidence. And the fact of the matter is that because what we're dealing here with things that are beyond the range of the mind and the words and the senses. I remember this is one of the first Sanskrit phrases I learned. Let me see if anyone knows what this is. Avan Manasa Gochara. You remember hearing that? Avan Manasa Gochara. All right, I'll solve the puzzle. So, means not. That's the first thing. And Van is for vak, for voice, for words. material words, hearing and speaking. And manas is mind. Gochara means accessible. So God and even the soul is beyond the range of our mind and ordinary words. So how are we going to know? We have to get the mercy of the Lord and His representatives. They have to give us the source of knowledge so that we can understand these things which are essential to understand. Because the basic understanding of the Vedic literature is that this world, the asat, there's this contrast between the sat and the asat. What is that famous phrase? Asato ma sadgamaya. Tamasi ma jyotirgamaya. Mrityam ma amritam gamaya. Right? You probably learned that as a child, right? So what is the meaning? There's two meanings, actually. Prabhupada would always take it, ma to mean not. But ma in this context can also mean me. It can be a prayer to God. Oh God, please take me from the temporary to the eternal. From darkness to light. Tamasi ma jyotir gamaya. And from death to immortality. Or it can be an injunction. Ma can mean not. Don't. Don't stay in the darkness. Go to the light, or come to the light. Don't stay in the impermanent, but go to the eternal. Don't stay in the world of death, but go to the world of immortality. So this is, I actually heard this way before I even heard of Hare Krishnas. You know, this was when I was going to a yoga studio in Eastern Manhattan. And who was my teacher, you remember? Amala Bhakta Swami. Then he was known as, I think, Shiva Prem Swami. And it was a whole saga of how he came to Krishna consciousness, which he told me, because he joined in 76, I think, a year after I arrived in LA. And I knew him from New York, you know. And it was funny. Did I tell this story before? So I was sitting in the Prasadam Hall, which at that time, those who've been to LA, was where the gift shop is now. It was upstairs, you know. So I'm sitting there, and Dhanavir Prabhu, he wasn't a Maharaj at that time, he was married, but he was in charge of the bhaktas. He pioneered making and training bhaktas in ISKCON. He wrote a book about it too, Fortunate Souls. Fortunate Souls. Anyway, he was there, and I said, oh, is this Shiva Prem Swami? He's come here to our ashram. I said to Dhanavir Prabhu, watch out for him. He's going to try to steal our bhaktas. But it turned out that he wants to become a bhakta. And he became Amala Bhakta, servant of the pure devotee, you know. Anyway, it's a great story. So up to that point, I had, you know, I was not interested. I wasn't a seeker of any kind. But anyway, I had a health crisis, and to get out of it, I wanted to practice Hatha Yoga. It had just become popular, you know. I thought, I think I can do this. And therefore, I went to, the rest is history. But back to our theme here is that the source of knowledge has to be coming from a transcendental source, and it has to be reliable. Because this is a very important point. Because as you may have heard many times before, and as we experience every day, in this age of Kali especially, you don't find these things even discussed. It's not that everyone is thinking a tato brahma jigyasa. Yeah, I have to use my human life to you know, inquire into the absolute truth. Where does everything come from? No. Certainly in the education system, I never encountered that. You know, I had 12 years of education in a little college. So Srila Prabhupada brought the whole Vedic culture with him. He brought the entire parampara, you know, when he came. I mean, it seemed like he was just a diminutive Indian gentleman walking through New York streets. But he was Krishna's representative who could give enlightenment to whoever really wanted to hear. Do you have a book? You should have a book. Do we have any more on it? Yeah, we're going to get some more. We'll have to get some more. Actually, we have a bunch. We should just put them in from the storeroom. Anyway, so the point here is that Arjun wants Krishna to explicate what's the fate of those who don't accept Shastra. Utsraja means to reject with great enthusiasm, you know, to kick out. Shastram Utsraja Vidhi. Vidhi means the instructions, the do's and don'ts. Vidi means, because the Shastra is full of all kinds of things. A description of the universe, description of how the universe is created, and so forth. But along with that, if it's going to be Shastra, there's also a set of things to do and a set of things to avoid doing. Because in order to become, really realize the truth of the Shastra, one has to become purified, so that the senses begin to be able to perceive these more subtle aspects of reality. And therefore there's a sadhana. Sadhana is a practice. And it leads to sadhya, the goal of the practice. So in a few words, you can say, what is our basic sadhana and what is our sadhya here in Krishna consciousness? First, what's the sadhya? Amoga. Okay, say it louder and in English. Yeah, pure devotional service. Or in other words, prema. Prema pumarta mahan. That's these little phrases. They're nice now. Prema, love of God, pure love for Krishna, completely selfless. You were right, on that. Pum is short for pungsa, which means human being. And arta means goal in life. And mahan means the great final goal of human life, or life in general, but human beings alone can really strive for it, is love for Krishna. That's what we're aiming for. Everything else follows in its train. In other words, you'll be provided, if you really attain love, then Krishna will provide your necessities for life, for living. And as far as liberation goes, it comes as a byproduct. There'll be nothing further to desire if we actually attain love for Krishna. So, that's the goal in life. And then the sadhana are the practices that lead to that. There's a nice list Prahlad Maharaj gave to his father. His father was not exactly a bhakta. He was just the opposite. But Prahlad was unafraid. Just imagine his father. He's like, just imagine like 300 pounds of solid muscle, all these siddhis, power. He's controlled the whole universe. And here's this 5-year-old boy, delicate 5-year-old boy, empowered only with his complete faith in Krishna and his realization and his purity. And unafraid, he is preaching Krishna consciousness. So his father asked, this is the second time, what did you learn today? He was a little doubtful, because the first time he said, you should give everything up and go to Vrindavan and take shelter of Hari. And so at that time he said, where did you pick that up? And he looked at Shanda and Amarka, the teachers. What have you been teaching him? That, he didn't have to say anything. And what? So we didn't tell him anything. We didn't teach him this, And later on they grilled Prahlad. Where did you learn that? They couldn't figure it out. He learned in the womb. So this time, those who know this verse, it's good to know this verse. 9 different processes of devotional service, beginning with hearing. Shravanam, kirtanam, vishno, smaranam, parasevanam, archanam, bandhanam, dasyam, sakyam, atmanivedanam. Begins with hearing. Hearing, chanting, remembering. Shravanam Kirtanam, Vishnu, and it's got to be a Vishnu, Prabhupada says on the tape. Not of some politician or something. Everyone's doing Shravanam Kirtanam, but it's got to be for Vishnu. And then, of course, from those 2 comes Smaranam. Those 3 are the essential. Shravanam Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, serving the lotus feet. Archanam, deity worship. Vandanam, prayers. Sakyam, dasyam, being a servant all the time, sakyam, friendship, and atmanivedanam, surrendering everything. So Prabhupada would always say, these are the 9 processes. You can, all 9, or maybe 5, or 4, or 3, or even just at least 1. If you take 1 and perfect that, you'll go back to guided. But really the one to perfect is Shravanam, Kirtanam, those two. So Arjuna is now asking about those who aren't involved in that at all. They've given up Shastra, they don't recognize it. What happens to them? But they worship someone. Yajante Shraddhayanvita. They have some faith, and they worship. Now, he dealt with this subject before in the 7th chapter, when he says, after this famous verse, those who know it, you got to start learning these Gita's verses. I have a wonderful file for those who are interested. Yeah. I've called this file Prabhupada Shloka Uttama. It's a PDF with links there's a list of 180 verses, the top 180 verses that Prabhupada would quote, by frequency. The ones he would quote most often, who could guess that one? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That's a verse. It's a verse. Yeah. Just send me a text, I'll get it to you. And then the next is, I think, maybe Sarva Dharman, Janma Karma Chame Divyam. You know this list. And there's many Gita verses. Then there's, Bhagavatam verses, Vedanta Sutras, all kinds of things. So then if you don't know the verse, you get a little clip, a little snippet of the beginning. And those who don't know, you just hit, you hit it, and there's a link to the back half of the PDF, which I appended there, which is the Prabhupada famous verse book that's in the database. I made it into a PDF, and it goes right to that verse. And then when you learn it, you go back. You just go back and you. So this one is there. Yek Shastra Vidamutsraja. That's there down in the middle of the list. So they have some faith. Yajante Shudyanvita. So one of the verses that's there, big time near the top, is Bahonam Janmanamante. We can sing it together. Jnanavan Mam Papadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. After many, many births, one who is truly wise, who has attained knowledge, what does he do? Sal, what do you think he does? Chant Hare Krishna, at least, right? Surrenders to me. He said, surrenders to me. Understanding that I, Vasudeva, am everything. Okay, so we're trying to do that, right? Who knows how many births we've had, cultivating knowledge. And the very next verse, he gives the contrast. On the other hand, kamaistaista rita jnana, one whose material desires steal away his knowledge. Now he's speaking within the context of the Vedic culture. So kamaistaista rita jnana papunyate anyadevata. They don't just go hog wild into the mode of ignorance. They worship other gods for material purposes, right? Yajante Shridayanvita Kamestasya Riddhyana Papudyante Anyadevata. They surrender unto other gods. Kamestasya Riddhyana Papudyante Anyadevata Tam Tam Nimamastaya Prakritani Ataksvaya. Controlled by their own natures, whatever mode of nature they're controlled by. Like these demons. The demons are always very staunch servants of the gods. Hiranyakashipu was worshipping Brahma. After Brahma appears to him, he addresses him as the supreme personality of Godhead. He really wants to. He thinks that. And what does he want? Something for himself. He doesn't want to learn how to serve it. Yeah, he wants immortal life, immortality. And Brahma says, I can't. I'm not immortal. I may live 310 billion, 40 billion years, but that's just one breath from Mahavishnu. I'm immortal. So, okay, so he gives a whole list, Hiranyakashipu, he has really thinks a back door he's going to hit, but he doesn't get it, as we know. Gets killed by Nisringadev. But he was staunchly worshipping. Ravana is worshipping Shiva. So they know they need a higher power, whatever higher powers they can get, they worship them, but all for personal gain, you see. And so... but here Krishna is saying, but they develop faith, because the whole thing is divisions of faith. With great faith, that Shiva can really give me what I need, or Indra even, Indra Jaggi. So Shraddhayanva, Kamesta Prajadev Tangtam Yasana Prakrityani Taksaya Yo Yamyam Tanu Bhakta Shraddhayajana Michati. Whatever you want to worship, if you want to develop, I will make your faith strong. And you may worship and you may get something, you think it's from there, but whatever you're getting, it's coming from me originally. I'm giving the demigods the power to give you whatever they give you. And whatever they're giving you, it's temporary. Antabatu palam tesham. There's like 4 verses, and this is like the climax of the verses. Antabatu palam tesham tadbhavalt elpamedasam devan devya joyanti madbhakta yanti mamapi. So antavat means temporary. It has an end. Whatever you get from the gods, it may be prosperity, it may be long life, it may be whatever. But it's temporary, it's within the realm of matter. So, but I can offer you eternal life, that's the difference. So those who do this are Alpamadasa, small brain substance, Krishna says. And then he has a little hint of what he's going to say in chapter 9. Devam devya joyanti mudbhakta yanti mamati. You go to whatever you worship. When you worship means you meditate on something, you become absorbed, you praise, you adulate, and you pray. This is worship. That can be for some rock star, it can be some political, idiot, whatever it is. You have faith. If I give my hard-earned money, if I give my adulation, if I go to the meeting, if I make the signs, that's worship. And unfortunately, you go there, wherever that person may be in the next life. And who knows? Come on. But that's the world we live in. It's a cult. It's like a religion. People have faith in that. They're losing faith in God. I keep track. The church attendance is going down, 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 year by year in America. Yeah. Young people are not, every year there's a big scandal, and everything. Who needs it? So, what happens to them? Are they in sattvam, rajas, or tama? Because this is all about, in terms of the modes of nature. Krishna was speaking about that in the last chapter, especially in chapter 14. Okay, any questions or comments on text 1?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. We have a question in Twitch from a new person. So
it's like they chatted with you, they wrote it in, is that it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The question
Speak slowly,
from...
because you have a heavy accent for me. Go ahead.
Okay. So the question is, in Hinduism, what is enlightenment and how to obtain it?
Okay. In what is enlightenment? In? Hinduism. Oh boy. Well, we're not really talking about Hinduism here, but I think I get the gist. Really, as Prabhupada said, many times I've heard it again, we need to restrict the questions to the subject matter that we're giving here. That's a broad question. I'll try to leave a little time at the end, okay? Because we're going to stay with this subject matter here. So I know what the question is, and we have a fair amount of time left. I'll try to answer it at the end.
Hare Krishna?
Go ahead. You have a question about the verse we just read?
Yes, about the title of the chapter.
The divisions of faith.
Yes, related to the concept of faith. My question is very simple, Prabhu, if I may say it. Is it that it is accurate to say that animals are also faithful creatures?
No. Only human beings.
Why not?
Because they just work on instinct. Faith requires intelligence. It's a moral question. In other words, faith means faith in something that you can't directly perceive, or that you can't, or that you think there's a higher power that's controlling it. Therefore, I have faith. I mean, faith is an inevitable concomitant of living in the material world or any world. Like you drive down the street, and we have real strong faith in those street lights, right? We're going down, and it's green and it turns yellow. Okay, I know this street light. 4 seconds I got to get across, And if you're lucky, they make it. Sometimes they change those. They make them quicker so that you go through and they can get tickets. But you do have faith that this one is red, right? When you're going fast with it in green. So and even just walking on the street. I remember I like to recount when I first came here to California. In Miami we had the hurricanes, but you had a lot of notice for that. I lived in Miami for 6 years before I came here, working on the Bhagavad Gita. So you had some notice. You could take precautions. But here you got these earthquakes, California, And I looked up where the faults, in San Diego and all this like that. So the faith that you're going to take a next step and you're not going to fall into some kind of ditch and sprain your ankle or something, right? Or worse. So just that, I can imagine how terrifying that is. You're suddenly the very earth below your feet is unsteady, turning to sand. What can you trust if you can't trust that? So faith is always there, but faith in something sublime. Prabhupada says real shraddha is faith in something sublime. So what is the definition of faith in Krishna consciousness? Does anyone know that verse? Shraddha Shabde. This is an important verse to know. It's a Bengali verse. Lord Chaitanya teaches this to Sanatana Goswami, I believe. Shraddha Shabde. Shabde is an idiom in Sanskrit. It means it's sounded or is defined as. Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kohe Sudridhanishchoy Krishna Bhakti Korle Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. That real faith is a complete conviction, very strong conviction, that just by performing the practices of devotional service, that all my aspirations will be fulfilled. It corresponds to nishtha in that ladder from faith to love. The original shraddha there is not pure faith. Prabhupada says it's some respect or preliminary interest, enough to bring you into the association of devotees. Adar shraddha tat sadhu sangha. So real faith means that, okay, I'm ready to listen a little bit, and check it out. That's the preliminary faith. But firm faith is nishtha after anartha nivritti, when you're becoming somewhat purified, not 100%. It's like nashta prayesha badreshu, nityam bhagavata sevaya, bhagavajittamashloke, bhakti bhavati, naishtiki. Same word, nishtha. So Prabhupada says maybe 75%, But you're convinced, that Krishna consciousness is for me. And then you progress to more and more taste and attraction and bhava and prema. So that faith has to be there. But another question? Okay. I'm not sure. Did I answer your question?
Completely. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Haribol. Go ahead. Yeah, you have to hold the button.
Hare Krishna. What is the difference between Archanam and Pada Sevanam? Is it then both same, like when we are worshipping Archanam? Vigraha?
There's some overlap there. But Pada Sevanam can be for the Guru, In other words, not just for Krishna.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, serving the lotus feet.
Lotus feet.
Devotees,
okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.
All right, let's go on. Text 2. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Trivadha Bhavati Shraddha Dehinam Sa Swabhavaja Satviki Rajasi Chaiva Tamasi Chetitam Shrinu. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, according to the modes of nature acquired by the embodied soul, one's faith can be of 3 kinds: in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance. Now hear about this. Purport. Those who know the rules and regulations of the scriptures, but out of laziness or indolence, give up following these rules and regulations, are governed by the modes of material nature. According to their previous activities in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance, they acquire a nature which is of a specific quality. The association of the living entity with the different modes of nature has been going on perpetually. Since the living entity is in contact with material nature, he acquires different types of mentality according to his association with the material modes. But this nature can be changed if one associates with a bona fide spiritual master and abides by his rules and the scriptures. Gradually, one can change his position from ignorance to goodness, or from passion to goodness. The conclusion is that blind faith in a particular mode of nature cannot help a person become elevated to the perfectional stage. One has to consider things carefully, with intelligence, in the association of a bona fide spiritual master. Thus one can change his position to a higher mode of nature. So this is kind of a summary of what we're trying to do in Krishna consciousness. And the key word, which comes up again and again, is sangha, association. The animals, they can't decide what they're going to associate with. It's all simply instinct. If there's something pleasurable that to eat, or some mate, then they'll make an effort to associate with that, right? By eating or other way. If there's some danger, then immediately it kicks in. They don't think about it. Should I run or not run? Boom, they're running. Or they're fighting, right? Fight or flight. That's the instinct, one way or another. And everything, they all have some kind of defense, Like when I used to take my walk before I had my accident. When I walked up on doors, usually, it's a regular, but it's dark. And I have the flashlight because I don't want to step on any bugs. And so, I think I mentioned this before, I've learned that if there's no foliage on the left side, just pavement, there won't be any bugs because they don't have any reason to cross over. There's nothing there. There's a logic to it. But if there's pole, then I have to be very careful. So you have these crickets, I don't know if you noticed, we have a lot of crickets. I used to have one under my refrigerator for about a year. And he would be calling for his mate, who never came because it's only him. Loud, that's why I started wearing earplugs at night. So anyway, but I learned the practice of the crickets, they jump. They jump from here to there. So they sense me coming, and they'll jump, assuming where I'm going to step. So I have to watch out for them that they don't jump underneath my feet, So I wait until I land, and then boom, I step over them, So they have everything has a certain strategy for defense or fight or flight. So there's no question of faith or anything like that. They're in a lower mode of nature, and they're just gradually going to come up. But human beings, we have a choice. We're also, having come up through the modes, we also have our animal propensities, so to speak. And without proper guidance and education, then we're sure to fall under the sway of the lower modes of nature. Because you have senses. There's lust, there's hunger, there's all of these different things. And you act on those impulses, and then you get controlled by that. So the key is education. And education for what? Not just to be a mode of passion and goodness, and out of the mode of ignorance, because that's pretty universally recognized as self-destructive and harmful. But passion is no good, to be a big enjoyer. You're just going to dig a bigger hole for yourself and have a dark future. And even goodness is not good enough, because that's not going to take you out of this material world, and oftentimes it's colored by the modes of passion and ignorance. So we need to learn how to rise up to the transcendental side. But this particular part of the chapter especially deals with those who have rejected Shastra. And so we're going to learn about foods in a different mode, about austerities of the mind in goodness, and mind controlled by passion and ignorance. There's a whole list here. That's what this chapter, divisions of faith. That's what the divisions of faith is. Your faith is colored by the mode of nature you're in. So when we cultivate the mode of goodness, especially transcendental goodness, pure goodness, then we begin to have faith in God, in Krishna, and that's where the Sangha comes in. Once again, we go back to 1321, is it? Remember? Purushak pakatisto hi bhunkte pakati jangunan karananguna sangosya sadasadyo nijanmasu 22. This is what Prabhupada is the whole purport is about this verse, the one in 17 we just read. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with this material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. So we are making our destiny with everything we do, whatever we see, hear, touch, taste, smell, and what we do with our active senses, what we choose. Now, but in human life, we can choose what to associate with. That's the whole thing. Choose according to what? According to what we've heard, what we've read in authoritative Shastra, or according to what we've heard and read or heard in rock music we're listening to or whatever, In other words, that's the key, is that the criterion by which you decide what you're going to think about and hear about, what's going to be the goal of your life, and how you're going to achieve it, and so forth. So that's what Srila Prabhupada's books are all about. So it's good to know the different divisions of faith according to the modes of nature, different divisions of food, how we eat, foods in the mode of goodness that are offered to Krishna, not meat, which is in the mode of ignorance. The reasons why, and then you can understand why you're feeling different. You're feeling purified. You're feeling not as anxious, because you're within Krishna consciousness. Of course, you're being purified of the karma from previous lives. So Krishna is just introducing here different kinds of faith in the different modes, and then he'll give us other things that are also in different modes. In this way, you see. As you go through life. Now, if we remember these verses, say, oh, this person is exhibiting these qualities of passion and ignorance. Let me see if I can give him a book. Or let me see if I can, somehow give him a little Krishna consciousness that'll be in the mix in their life. So that's when we learn these truths of the Bhagavad Gita. All right, any discussion on text 2? All right, let's go on. Sattvanurupa.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Go ahead.
Prabhu, if I may.
Yeah, you're a little. It's a little harder for you to hear. For me to hear. Can you get closer to your mic or whatever?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but we're going to turn you up a little bit. Keep talking.
Prabhu, the quote from the purport, text 2 is, quote, the conclusion is that blind faith in a particular mode of nature cannot help a person become elevated to the perfectional stage, end quote. Prabhu, related to the concept of blind faith, my question is, how far can I go in relation to not using blind faith when I am searching for a genuine spiritual master? How far can I go in relation to challenging him to know if he is genuine or not?
Yeah, the whole idea is to become well versed enough in the Shastra so you understand the what Prabhupada would call the symptoms or characteristics of a genuine teacher, a genuine guru. What is this again? This principle of acharya. You remember the three elements of acharya? The basic word behind the word acharya is achar, which means behavior. So you have he knows the Shastra, he lives according to the Shastra, and he teaches the Shastra. That's acharya. Prabhupada is the ideal example. So first of all, you have to know what is the real Shastra. And Prabhupada gave us that. He gave us the Bhagavad Gita, he gave us the Bhagavatam, he gave us the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar of Devotion. There, in great detail, we understand real characteristics. And therefore, he was differentiated from others who were playing that role, but didn't really meet the criteria. Because eventually the real nature comes out. You may put on a good show for some time, but if you're not actually a devotee, you're not actually have faith in Krishna, and you're playing some kind of game, then you start meeting the criteria of the 16th chapter. What is that word that keeps coming up again in that 16th chapter? I think 3 times we had it. Damba. Damba, dambena. And damba means false pride, and especially it means bluffing, hypocrisy, trying to look religious, so that you can get so many followers, but not actually being religious. And eventually it all comes out. Every one of them eventually shows the real colors. They ran off with one of their disciples, or this problem, or they were smuggling money or extorting money or, whatever. So, but Prabhupada, he never did that. Whatever money came in, he would keep careful track of that. He would insist that it be spent for Krishna. He would get $1 million. All right, let's start a temple in Bombay, And he had so much money coming in because he had so many devotees who had faith in him, because he'd earned that faith. And he was giving the greatest treasure, this Hare Krishna mantra, and genuine purity, and so much subtle things are going on. Like this crazy pandemic and all the stuff that's going on now. The biggest toll is happening inside people's minds. There's a tremendous mental health crisis going on. But the Hare Krishnas, we keep doing the same thing, chanting and dancing. We may be in some anxiety about what's going on, but we have our shelter. We have our source of sense of meaning for your life, which they find is very important, real meaning for your life. Whatever you do, you sweep the floor one time in this temple, and you put another brick in the yellow brick roll back together. Anyway, I don't want to get... The point is, it all counts. And especially if you're following, chanting 16 rounds, that's a tremendous, soothing for the soul. So we were riding along in this crisis everywhere. There's an ocean of anxiety people are feeling because they don't have that. They're out of touch with Krishna, they're out of touch with themselves, and they're being battered around by these forces of passion, ignorance, the demons. So what could be more valuable than that? Dr. Daniel or any of you go out and give someone a little Perfection of Yoga book, you've given them a lifeline. to eternity. So that's the idea. The conclusion is, what was it? That blind faith and particular motive of nature cannot help us. So people have blind faith. They have to have faith. Faith has to be there. But without reference to the Shastra and reality, then you're going to be cheated. You have faith in, that's what the con men are. They give you confidence, faith, and then they cheat you, right? They don't deserve the confidence. But that's what it is. But Prabhupada wasn't a con man. He was genuine. And Krishna is really there, and he'll give himself to you if you're sincere, if you're actually ready to sincerely make an effort to know him and serve him. So there it is. Blind faith isn't any good. All right, it's a little late. Today is Monday. I'm going to try to make it to class. Hopefully I'll be a little more mobile tomorrow. We have a few minutes. I'm sorry? Yeah, I have many, actually. So we have a few minutes. So in this time allotted, I'll chant as much of the Shikshastika as we can get through. Okay? Those who know it, Sanskrit, Cheto Darpanam Janam Bhavamahadavagni Nirvapanam Sheyakaira Chandrika Patadanam Vidyavadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Padipadam Purnamita Swadanam Sarvatma Snaparam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Daniel knows it, or he knows how to look like he knows it. That's good. No, one day you will know it. All right, all glories to the chanting of Shri Krishna's holy names, which easily extinguishes samsara's blazing flames by polishing the lust-encrusted mirror of the heart. That chanting is the waxing moon that knows the secret art of causing the white lotus of good fortune to unfurl its petals far and wide throughout this bleak and blighted world of transcendental knowledge which will take us to life's goal. The chanting of the name of Krishna is the life and soul. The ocean of ecstatic bliss floods far beyond its bounds, wherever Krishna's merciful and mystic name resounds. Indeed, whenever Krishna's name is sung in congregation, at every step one tastes a joy that knows no limitation. So hear with great attention as I earnestly request, please chant Shri Krishna's holy name and be supremely blessed. The soothing nectar of the name will bathe your consciousness, bestow pure love for Krishna, and eradicate distress. But how to get a taste for chanting? Nam namakari bahudani dasarva shaktis tatra pitani amitak smaranena karaha etadrishita vakripa bhagavan mamapi and durdayavami jasamiha janinanuraga. Krishna, Govinda, and Keshava too, your names have no end, and in each of them you have invested your potencies, leaving none out. Whenever we want, we can chant them without the slightest restriction of time or of place. O Lord, who can fathom your infinite grace? But I am so wretched and devoid of all shame that I haven't developed a taste for your name. So now, perhaps the most important verse and the smallest verse. Trinada bisunichena tarot apisahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadaharihi. More humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, to think all praise belongs to others, none belongs to me. Such qualities attract the Lord to bless one with the power to chant His name incessantly until the final hour. What are you praying for? What are you chanting for? Next verse. Nadanang najanang nasundarim kavitam vajagadish kamaye mama janmani janmanishware bhavata bhaktidahaitu ki tvahi. Wealth and women, followers, the fruits of mundane piety, liberation from this world of limitless anxiety. For me, O Lord, these common goals have not the slightest worth. Let me serve you purely now and in each future birth. So he's praying to the Lord of the universe, but he's really praying to the son of Nanda. Ahinanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam vashame bhavambodo kripayata vapara pankajas taduli sadvashang vachindaya. Wealth and women, followers, the fruits of... No, I'm sorry. Your servant for eternity, I lost my true identity and fell in... Your servant for eternity, I lost my true identity and fell into this horrid sea of birth and death, O Lord. O Nanda's son, please hear my plea. By your sweet grace, consider me a speck of dust upon your lotus feet forevermore. Nayanangala dashadadaya badanangan kadadudhayagara pulaka nichatang papukadata banamo gahane bhavishyati. Tears streaming from my eyes, my voice choked with bliss, the hair upon my body standing up in happiness. When will all these signs of rapture decorate my limbs as I chant your holy name? the monarch of all hymns. Bhadrinarayan Maharaj likes that last line, monarch of all hymns. And then what's the result? Yugaitam nameshena chakshusha prabhashahitam shunyahitam jagat sabham govinda bidahe name. Every moment drags on like 1,000,000 years or more. From the rain clouds of my eyes, the tears and torrents pour. This whole creation is nothing but a vast and joyless void. O Govinda, by your absence, I am being destroyed. And finally, Radharani offers this verse. Ashlishya paradatam pinashtamama darshanan mama hatankarotuva yatatata vadatata lampato mat prananatas tu saheva naparaha. Let Madhava embrace this maid who's fallen at his feet, or let him trample me, O my most ardent hope's defeat, by never giving me a chance to see him anywhere, thus shattering my heart and plunging me into despair. You see, he is a restless libertine and not a saint. So let him act in any way he likes without restraint. Yet though his cruel and crooked ways may cause me constant woe, Krishna is the only Lord my heart shall ever know. And then there's a blessing verse from Krishna's Kaviraj. These 8 essential verses Lord Chaitanya wrote to teach the practice and the goal of chanting Krishna's holy name. Day by day, whoever sings this hymn will surely reach a little closer to perfection, spotless Krishna praying. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. Now, if you want to see that in context, 16 years ago, I sang that in Mayapur. With right behind me was Ranath Swami and Aindra, and I had Vyasaki over here, and yeah. Dravida, Mayapur, and YouTube. Check it out. After all those years, I already have 15,000 hits. I'm going viral.